Hello, LeaderWise community. I'm Emily Bogus, one of the staff here in the leadership development team, and I am here with Tim Nelson, who is one of our spiritual directors. Tim, thank you so much for being here and being with me.
Well, thanks, Emily, for inviting me. Look forward to a conversation.
Yeah. Tim, how did you come to be a spiritual director?
Well, I was looking back, and it's been over 20 years
Wow.
since I came to spiritual direction. And for me, it happened in that as I was kind of in the middle of that second half of life.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by second half of life isn't necessarily chronology, although I entered into spiritual direction when I was about 40.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of in the middle of what people would think of a lifespan. But when I think second half of life, more what Richard Rohr and um, Janet Hagberg and others write about, this kind of a deep spiritual movement that happens in life
Yeah. Yeah.
where priorities kind of shift and change, or the notion of the divine or God or whatever language is used for God
Mm-hmm.
expands, where God doesn't fit neatly in that little box that I may have assumed God fit into. So things kind of
Right.
break open in a way, and once that happens, it's hard to push God back into that box, I found. Um, where ambiguity is okay,
Yeah.
where there are more questions than there are answers, and where certain things that seemed really important at one time fall away and aren't necessarily holding the same importance for me. So
Right.
all of that led me into spiritual direction, first as receiving spiritual direction, and then entering into a spiritual direction training program. I remember being with my spiritual director saying that I love this way of being, of connecting with people where their beliefs are,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to be able to do that more. And what she encouraged me to do is to keep that dream, but hold that form lightly, to
Mm.
hold lightly to how that looks.
Yeah.
And after retiring, now I've re-entered spiritual direction again through LeaderWise and able to be in conversation again with people around that. So
Well,
that's how I
Tim,
found my way.
And what, I mean, what a journey. And obviously you're saying it very succinctly. There's a lot there. And I'm wondering, because the way you talk about that second half of life, or the shifts that happen in that time period, it sounds scary.
Mhm.
You know.
I'm glad you mentioned fear, because that is really, I mean, when we get right down to it and when we're in the middle of those shifts and changes, that it is a scary place. And the analogy that comes to mind, if you have a sweater
Yeah.
on and you start pulling one of the threads, and pretty soon all you
Yes.
have is a ball of yarn,
Yeah, there goes your
and
favorite sweater.
there
Yeah.
goes my favorite spiritual beliefs,
Yeah. Yeah.
because and so it's also a reconstructing,
Yeah.
but takes time
Yeah.
and effort. When you talk about issues that people are facing, I guess a theme that would be present would be, again, that second half of life.
Yeah.
Everybody that I'm seeing through LeaderWise is in that place of their second half of life, not necessarily
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
chronologically, but really
Right.
spiritually, of coming to a new place of awakening, and that notion of, how do I have integrity? How do I have authenticity, to be authentic with what they themselves hold as their core
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, coupled with then being authentic with how they proclaim that. You bet.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly what I encounter with people is just simply trying to be present to this life.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
spiritual
yeah.
direction isn't necessarily about a goal, although some people may come in with a goal about something
Mm-hmm.
that they want to work on, but more about being awake to where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like that Google Earth app.
Yeah.
So I'll click Google Earth and it'll spiral around and locate me in a particular spot.
Yeah.
That's where I am. And that's what I
Yeah.
see spiritual direction inviting people into, is this is where I am. And
Mm.
how do I live fully and be fully present to this place where I am right now?
So, Tim, you do most of your spiritual direction through Zoom, or all of it, right?
I do. Yep, I do. And part of this started out of necessity given the pandemic. And for me, it's turned into the pattern that works best for me. And I think it works well. I know. Yeah. And so I try to be really mindful of that,
Mm-hmm.
of setting a table. I like to use
Mm-hmm.
that image. And part of that begins with myself. How
Yeah.
do I prepare myself? And you know that I'm a retired person, and I have that luxury, that privilege of having a lot of open space.
Yeah.
And so I try to schedule sessions with people for spiritual direction where I'm not in a hurry,
Right.
where I'm not rushing from one thing to another. I may be out for a walk,
Yep.
listening to the birds before coming in and sitting
Mm-hmm.
in my little space here in this little office area. I like to hold
Mm-hmm.
silence for about 7 breaths.
Yeah.
There's a minister here in the Twin Cities who used that as in worship often. And I find that holding silence for 7 breaths
Mm-hmm.
is kind of slow breaths, an ample amount of time to refocus, but also that ritual of breathing
Mm-hmm.
also brings us into the present moment. So
Yeah.
I'll ask if that's something that would be helpful, and I may offer a prayer if it seems appropriate at the end of that, or a spiritual reading of some sort of poem.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is how I like to shape
Mm-hmm.
our beginnings together. Don't read it every time. You just read it the first
Yeah,
time.
that first time.
So here it is, called Come Into the Space. Come in. Come into the space which we make holy by our presence.
Mm.
Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into the space where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven.
Mm.
Come into the space where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this space. Together, we make it a holy space.
Mm.
Again, that's by Rebecca Edmiston Lang.
What song is your life's current theme song?
Mhm. But I think the song that resonates with me, Peter Mayer
Uh-huh.
is, now there's a couple Peter Mayers,
Okay.
but one Peter Mayer is a singer-songwriter from Minnesota,
Yes.
is the Peter Mayer to which I'm referring. And he has a song called Holy Now.
Oh, such a good song.
You know that one?
I do. I know it very well. Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, as I'm living into the second half of life, as I'm in this phase of retirement, as where life is opening up in a whole new way, I'm
Mm-hmm.
noticing more and more that really everything is holy now.
Yeah,
Um, Everything can become holy as we pay attention.
that's
I
right.
really do believe that. As we pay attention, anything can become holy or sacred. Our practice that my spiritual director encouraged me to consider at one point in time was taking a picture a day, taking a photograph a
Mm.
day. And this is before the days of the cell phones with cameras.
Yeah, yeah,
This is when you had to lug your equipment around
yeah,
or
yeah.
camera around
And have real film.
and have real film. And I
Hmm.
found though that doing that ritual or having that practice
Hmm.
made me look at life differently.
Yep.
So I was looking for what would be my photo today,
Hmm.
as opposed to just driving through a park to get to work.
Right.
And I found myself intentionally stopping to take that
Hmm.
photograph. So that's
Hmm.
part of that dailiness. It's part of that. Everything becomes holy as we pay attention.
Well, Tim, we're so grateful that you're one of LeaderWise's spiritual directors. And if anyone is interested in learning more about spiritual direction, feel free to go to our website and we will teach you more about what spiritual direction is and what it can mean for you and your leadership. So, Tim, thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. Good to be with you.